They kept me in a cupboard. I wasn't allowed to ever leave Parliament. I used to be on a 3-line whip at all times. At least part of it is because you guys left us with...
They weren't my guys by the end.
The rich has got a lot richer.
Well, some of them live in Islington South.
I think the threat to the Labour Party is a lack of confidence. We are much better at fighting each other than we are fighting the Tories sometimes. Yeah, and we have to get over ourselves. There is a solution, and we do have a way through this, and this is what it is, and here's the way we're going to go.
Welcome to Political Currency, and a big welcome to Dame Emily Thornberry, who is in the studio here. And I think we are not actually in your constituency, but we are yards, or maybe a few hundred yards from you. It feels like I'm in Thornbury country here.
But you're not. You're on the wrong side of the border. And actually, it's like there be dragons. I know my constituency really well.
Yeah.
But if you're on the wrong side of the road, I don't know you.
Oh, no.
I mean, really, it's, So I wasn't, I got a cab here and I wasn't paying attention. And I suddenly was dropped here and just did not know where I was. Felt completely disoriented.
I think the border is only,
It's, I've now
on
worked
the main
it out.
street.
I think it's like 100 yards away.
Yeah. Anyway,
really
so you're not welcoming me. I'm welcoming you to our studio, and you are taking the place of the great Ed Balls, who is, I think, interrailing with his wife at the moment.
Very good. I'll do my best.
Listen, thank you for coming in. I was sort of thinking, who would I like to talk to? And we don't know each other, but we were in Parliament for many years together.
Yeah.
And I always thought one of the things I like about you is that you enjoy politics. I come across quite a lot of politicians who are all sort of, it's too hard and it's all very depressing and it's all too difficult. But you have always come across to me as someone who, it's obviously the subject matter is often very serious, but you enjoy it. You enjoy the cut and thrust. You enjoy the kind of absurdity sometimes of politics. Is that a fair thing? You look like you...
Yeah, I mean, I do work really hard and I couldn't do it if I didn't enjoy it. I mean, it is really hard work, right?
Yeah.
And I think if you don't enjoy it, then it would just be a terrible grind. But I like people and I really am interested in politics and I believe in politics. I believe that it can make things better. Yeah, so that's why I'm involved. I want to make things better. And there are terrible things that happen in the world where politics fails. And so I believe that we can find a way through these things. And we need to work on it. But yes, I do enjoy it. I absolutely love the honour of being the representative of Islington South. People are lovely to me. I get hugged in the street. I mean, I also get shouted at, but I try to remember the people who hug me in the street.
Yeah.
And it's a great honour to be their MP and to do everything I can to represent them on the national stage. But I'm very excited at the moment with a Labour government, finally, after 14 years of the Tories, and to be able to play my part in, as I say, in making the country better and in my role as chair of the Foreign Affairs Committee to make the Foreign Office as good as it possibly can be.
But you must be one of the now longer serving Labour MPs, just because there's been such an influx of new MPs.
It's been such a turnover.
But people often say to me, and I've been out of Parliament for 8 years now, has life as an MP got harder, or do you think just every generation of MPs thinks, it was somehow easier in the past, or they have a sort of rose-tinted view of what politics used to be like? Or do you, in your experience as an MP, is it a harder job than when you and I got elected?
I think it's definitely different. It's definitely different. I think life in Parliament itself is easier. We don't have things that are a bit more flexible in terms of the whipping arrangements. I remember when I was first elected, I had this big row with the leadership about introducing 90 days detention without any evidence, and
because you were elected at the sort of tail end of the Blair Brown.
That's
era,
right. That's right. Yeah. So 2005, I've been an MP for like 6 weeks, right. and 7/7 happens, and 13 people from Islington are killed in the bombs.
Right.
And I do my best to try and pull my community together. We have a big memorial meeting with all of the faiths represented, with all the families there. And, we put out the Islington Statement, which was essentially saying, I didn't quite use this language, but what I meant was these bastards aren't going to divide us.
Yeah.
The reason they hate us is because we are an example to the world of how people can live together and actually get on.
Right.
And we're not going to let them, pull us apart. Anyway, so that was kind of the approach I'd taken. And then Tony Blair wanted to introduce 90 days detention. I mean, what happens if they picked up the wrong Mohammed outside of the sixth form college in Islington and stuck him in jail for 3 months? I mean, if he wasn't, radicalised beforehand, he certainly would be by the time he came out, and so would all his classmates. I mean, it was disastrous policy. And so I was a really proud Labour MP. I couldn't believe I'd been elected, and, it was fantastic. And then I had to go into full-blown opposition to my very own government, which was awful.
And presumably people said, you're never going to serve on the front bench. You do this. Emily, you're ruining your career.
No. But, I couldn't. I just couldn't. I'd been a barrister for 20 years beforehand. I had done criminal defence work. I knew about the pitfalls, and I knew about, if you give police officers the power to arrest people without any evidence, what was going to happen. And I couldn't allow it to happen. I had to do everything I could to stop it. But I did get into an awful lot of trouble. There were people who would not speak to me. Yeah. Would not speak to me, not just for weeks, but for much longer.
What, members of the Blair government?
Members of the Parliament, other backbenchers who just didn't want to be seen, contaminated by me. They kept me in a cupboard. I wasn't allowed to ever leave Parliament. I used to be on a 3-line whip at all times, never to any, that sort of thing. It came down really hard on me because there hadn't been a rebellion that had actually been successful before. Yeah. And there I was, a 6-week MP involved in a
I was an opposition MP, I remember at the time. So that
was hard.
So that first period as a government backbencher, you were basically bolshie, obstructive, rebel.
No, I wasn't. Absolutely not. But that was the ironic thing. Actually, I was a really loyal Labour backbencher, proud of my government, but I disagreed on that.
Right.
So
now you're again a government backbencher.
Yes.
14. We've had the 14 years of the Tories in between.
And so 20 years I've been in Parliament now.
And how is it different now? Because you're if not the most senior Labour backbencher, pretty much the most senior.
Well,
Labour.
there are quite a few that are more senior than me, but
I'm
amongst. Yeah,
but you've done top jobs in the shadow cabinet.
Right.
You're chair of one of the top select committees. What do you see your job now? Do you see as a government backbencher? Was you critical friend? What would be your?
Yeah. I'm Labour through and through. I'm proud we've got a Labour government. I want it to do well. I wish it well. I want to help. And so it's really a question of how do you help as a backbencher as opposed to a frontbencher. I think that you do have more. I have more latitude to speak more freely. I can be more discursive. I can, I've been doing Media Today, in which I've been able to talk at greater length and with less self-consciousness than perhaps I might have done as a frontbencher. You have to always be careful when you're speaking on behalf of the government or behalf of your party to get it absolutely right. I remember being on Question Time with Farage once, and
he's on Question Time the whole time.
Well, yeah, except it seems I've been on Question Time, according to Question Time, as often, if not more often than him. But anyway, so the two of us are on Question Time, and he leans over and he says, "Oh, Emily, you're such a swot. Look at all those notes you've got." And I said, "Well, I'm speaking on behalf of the Labour Party. I can't just make it up as I go along." Which obviously he can. But
if you're a one-man band,
you can
pick your own tunes.
Exactly, and that so you can speak more freely. I can say much more what I believe, but I also do want to be supportive, and I want the government to be as good as it can be, and I want it to listen to some alternative voices sometimes.
And what's your? I mean, obviously, I don't want to go over it all, but you must have been disappointed not to have been put in the government when it was elected a year ago. I think some people I know, when that doesn't happen to them, or indeed they're fired from government, they go, right, that is it, right? I am now the sworn enemy of the party leader.
I don't feel But I mean, you had the same experience, didn't you?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you'd been in a very senior job, and then Theresa May takes over. You must have gone in thinking, oh, well, I may not get that job, but presumably I'll get something else.
Yeah.
And I didn't get anything.
Yeah.
I didn't not only not get my job, but I didn't get offered anything at all.
Nor did I.
No, exactly. So we understand each other. It was a surprise, and
I would say
you
maybe have taken it better than I did.
No. I mean, well, you know, so I found it very hard. I found it very hard. I was very upset. For a long time, I was very upset. But my approach has always been. I sound like a terrible girl guide. But I mean, my approach has always been make the best of what you've got. Make the best of now, because if you don't make the best of now, then who knows what will happen to you next. So
I do give advice to people who want to be MPs that you have to be happy to be an MP. If all you want to do is be the Prime Minister, you're likely to be disappointed. Or you only want to be a government. You know, I think you have to enjoy, as I think you do, Parliament and
being a representative.
And I think you do also. I mean, I've got more perspective now I've left, which I don't think I saw at the time. There are lots of ways to influence a government.
Yeah.
I mean, arguably, this government, has been as influenced by things happening outside the cabinet as things happening inside the cabinet on, big decisions they've taken on Gaza or, welfare reform or whatever it happens to be. So,
well, that's healthy.
Yeah. What about, I want to ask you, I love sort of what ifs in politics. We've done a few on this show. But I don't think people really have noticed how close Jeremy Corbyn came to winning that 2017 election. I mean, it was against Theresa May. I mean, it was only a few seats. I mean, if she'd lost 5 more seats or something like that, then there wouldn't have been a deal with the Ulster Unionists that would have given the Tories a majority. And Jeremy would have been the Prime Minister, and you would have been, in effect, I don't know if you were going to be the first Secretary of State and Foreign Secretary and so on. There's a bit to me that just wonders, and I don't know whether you have thought about it, how would the British state have coped with Jeremy as Prime Minister? What would have happened?
So I think the thing that people need to remember is that he is a collectivist. Yes. So actually he gave you much more leeway than a lot of leaders do, and then would allow people to work collectively. So that was important. And if I had stayed in the role I was then, which I think I was shadow foreign at that point, and shadow first secretary, so that I think that there would have been a lot of things that would have been different. I think we would have had a second referendum on whether we should leave the European Union.
Although Jeremy himself was a kind of closet Brexiteer,
I genuinely don't think that's right. I think that, the number of conversations I had on one-to-one basis with Jeremy Corbyn about Europe, I don't even remember. I had more conversations with him about the Western Sahara. I mean, seriously, it just like it was not. That was not his thing.
No.
His thing was poverty. It was housing. It was human rights. It was foreign affairs, but not Europe. Not interested. Really not interested.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe a residual if he thought about it. Oh, I don't think I like Europe, but not.
The kind of 1970, the Tony Benn view of it's a capitalist club.
Yeah, but not that. But not even brought up that much. I mean, like probably in his peripheral vision. So
second referendum.
I think definitely
that's a big deal.
I think there would have been a second referendum. I think there would have been a second referendum, and we would have said, is this what you want?
Yeah.
This is the best deal we've been able to get. Is this what you want? It isn't. Obviously, it isn't all the things that were promised before the referendum, because everything was promised, during the referendum, and clearly it was not possible to deliver those things. So to say to the public, we need to be clear before we do this is a big step. Do you really want this? This is the best deal we can get.
So what about you would have been the Foreign Secretary. MI6 reports to the Foreign Secretary. GCHQ reports to the Foreign Secretary. I mean, how would all those spy agencies have coped with Jeremy?
I had quite a good relationship with them. I mean, I think, I'd been in quite a lot, and I think that I'm seen as a trusted person.
No, I'm sure they were hoping the buck would stop with you rather than with the Prime Minister.
I mean, Jeremy had been in too. I'd arranged for a meeting with Jeremy too.
Probably wasn't the first time they'd listen to Jeremy Corbyn. But
it was always a question about what files they had on him and whether he was allowed to see them. It would have been quite funny.
It wouldn't have been. There's in my head, but maybe it's I'm kidding myself. You know, remember that wonderful Chris Mullin book, A Very British Coup, which there was also then a great BBC drama.
Yeah.
Would it have been? I mean, I just wonder whether the British establishment could have accepted him as Prime Minister, even though it was so close. They absolutely would have accepted you as Foreign Secretary. I've got absolutely no doubt about that, or indeed most of the people who were in that shadow cabinet. It's just the Prime Minister. There are the most sensitive sort of security level and military level. These are prime ministerial decisions, or the relationship with the United States, for example. I just wonder, but you think it basically would have worked out somehow?
I'm not saying it wouldn't have been difficult.
Yeah.
I'm not pretending that it wouldn't have been difficult. I think the reality is, people listening to this program will know that those in the back room are as important as those who do front of house. And so probably not enough attention is spent on who might have been in the back room and who Jeremy might have chosen to be his trusted advisors and who would have had the ear. I think that perhaps is more important than anything else. And I had a number of people know the number of arguments I had, or they know about some of them. And I always used to say, advisors advise and the politicians decide. I am not being told what to do. And
there's a certain Mr. Milne.
There's certain. I mean, there was. You could. Okay, let's say this, right. This is I think a really good example. So after the Salisbury poisoning,
yes,
I was supposed to be doing the response in Parliament, and so I wrote a speech, and that I emailed downstairs to the leader's office. All this is known because somebody in the leader's office leaked all these emails. So you can see the progression. What I would have said if I'd been able to do it, but then Theresa May did it, so therefore Jeremy Corbyn did the answer. So I didn't. And so they redrafted my speech, and you can see that it's not as strong as it was, but it's still just about all right, but not great. But that was as far as we got. And then what actually happened, the real damage was done by Seamus Milne briefing the press in the way that he did, saying something way out there and not actually what Jeremy had said in his speech, and certainly not what I would have said. So I think, that dynamic is a kind of quite a good illustration of the tensions.
That would have played out in government. I think that's a really interesting contrast. Tell me if I got it wrong. You're not a Corbynista. I put you much more to the sort of centre of the. I mean,
I agree with a lot of the things that Jeremy said. Yeah. I agree with the emphasis that he puts on housing, on poverty. Where he's Islington North, I'm Islington South. My experiences are very similar to his in terms of the needs of my constituents. You're much more mainstream. Yeah, I'm
Labour,
probably more
part
mainstream.
Of mainstream in the sort of Labour movement.
Yeah, I believe I come from the heart of the Labour Party and always have. Yeah.
And so, you took the decision, which, some Labour MPs chose to not do, which is to serve in the shadow cabinet, as of course did Keir Starmer. And I guess you would have taken the view it's better to be inside the tent trying to shape things and make things better. And, if I'm there, I can influence things. I mean, it sort of, and yet Jeremy Corbyn is now outside the tent. I mean, he was kicked out, but he's decided to set up his own party rather than to fight to be kind of readmitted to Labour. Why did you make your decision? And presumably there was some Labour MP saying, Emily, how can you possibly serve with...
it was worse than that. It was worse than that. I was given a place in the cabinet after the big rebellion post the referendum. And everybody was saying, it's all Jeremy Corbyn's fault. We refuse to serve in, et cetera, et cetera. And I just thought it was wrong. I thought that, first of all, I would, and some of my best friends and I would have terrible rows about it. And I would say, look, first of all, you're not going to shift him. If he doesn't, the way the Labour Party is, if you want to be leader of the Labour Party and you're leader of the Labour Party, you stay being leader until you decide not to. And he's not going to change his mind. I think you misunderstand the nature of the man. He's been a backbencher on the Labour benches. He's pretty bloody minded. And if he makes up his mind to do something, you're not going to shift him. So he's going to be leader of the Labour Party. And the more you rebel and the more difficult people are, actually, the more support he's likely to get because people love a victim. And this is not the way to do it. The way to do it is to make him the best leader he can be. It's your duty to make him the best leader. If you're a Labour MP, you should make the leader of the Labour Party the best leader he can be. That's my view. And if you really felt that you could make a difference by rebelling, then fine. And I'd say to people, why are you doing it? You know that you can't. And they go, oh, because it's just so awful. I can't possibly. I go, well, get over yourself. It's your duty.
Although wouldn't some people say that's, a kind of a feature of the left, and that particularly Labour Party is very tribal. You're part of a movement with all that history. I always think the Conservative Party doesn't carry anything like that kind of baggage.
I don't think it's baggage, you see. I think it's like, that's what I mean.
But there would be people who say, I'm Labour, I always vote Labour, even if that's going to put in office like a Prime Minister who I fundamentally disagree with.
We don't fundamentally disagree with him, but there are things you just... I mean, listen, if you're on the left, then you want to change. You want change. And you'll have slight difference of emphasis as to kind of what change you want. Of course, that's the nature of the left. The great advantage we have in this country is that we have a Labour Party. And that is a coalition. We're the coalition on the left. And so there will be people who will disagree. But what we have to do is in order for there to be a two-party system, in order for there to be first past the post, the Labour Party has to be a bit more tolerant of the Labour Party. We are much better at fighting each other than we are fighting the Tories sometimes. Yeah, and we have to get over ourselves. And we just need to be able to work out, we agree with each other 85% of the time and we can disagree vehemently on 15%. That's fine. But we need to have a bit of respect for each other and a bit of trust for each other. And, that's what I think. And people hate me for it.
But you say coalition on the left, but I think some people at the moment would say that the Labour Party is allowing a kind of fragmentation on the left because the Green Party is doing better. The Liberal Democrats have been picking up some of the sort of supportive people who don't like, for example, the fact that Keir Starmer is doing deals with Donald Trump. There is the potential, we don't know yet, of the kind of Jeremy Corbyn, Zara Sultana party. Do you think the Labour... there's a kind of critique you hear from some of my Labour friends, which is that Downing Street is obsessed with Farage and the right, and they're kind of neglecting the left. And that's actually, if the Labour Party could just hold together all the people who are centre-left progressives, that would be what you need to win an election.
Yeah, I think I'm more in that wing. I think I'm more of that belief. But
is that because you're an Islington MP? If I had here, I guess what we used to call the Red Wall MP, if you had the MP for Hartlepool or Sedgefield, they would say, no, you can't ignore that Farage reform, streak in politics. And obviously, it cost me my political career at the time of Brexit. That it's the Labour's got to understand that in the seats it's won at this election, recent election, the threat is from Farage. It's not from the Tories and it's not from the Liberal Democrats and whatever.
I think the threat to the Labour Party is a lack of confidence. I think we need to be a bit more proud of ourselves and what it is that we stand for. And I think that there's nothing wrong with speaking to the public and saying, you may not agree with everything we're doing, but look at all the things we are doing that you do agree with. I think that's important. And I think you also need to have the confidence to be able to listen. And yes, if necessary, change what you're doing and say, I'm changing my mind because I've heard this argument and this is a good one. And yeah, no, I hear you, I understand. We just need to be able to do that. I think that the problem that we have is giving the impression of being buffeted about.
Well, it's more than an impression. It has been buffeted about on the domestic front.
Well,
because you can't announce we're cutting these disability benefits or we're taking away the winter fuel allowance and then a few months later say, we've changed our mind.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
I know you can say, it's good they're listening, but
it is good they're listening.
Yeah, but generally better to get it right first time.
It's better to get it right the first time. It's better to get the right first time, and the way to get it right the first time is to listen in the first place, and to think through what you're doing. But But all I'm saying is that within what would be seen as a red wall seat, there will be all kinds of different people. You can't just assume that everybody is the same, because that's really insulting. There's actually layer upon layer of different people, and what you can do is you can, I think, if you listen to start with, is pitch things in such a way that you are largely giving people what they want, but not completely. But there are certain elements, there are certain things, there's undercurrents that you just need to be mindful of and work out, well, do we have an answer to this? Do we have a confident answer to this? And it may not be everything that people want. It may not even be what they're demanding, but it is an answer. And if it delivers on what they want, but it's done in a slightly different way, there's nothing wrong with that. But you just need to stand your ground and be clear about it.
Why do you think on the sort of domestic front things have not gone as well as you might expect? I mean, the first year of this government, given it's got a huge majority, has not been anything like as smooth as the Tony Blair first year, or even the Cameron first year, and that was in a coalition. Yeah. So on the foreign stage, and you're the chair of the Foreign Affairs Committee, I would say Keir Starmer is doing pretty well, and he's really handling Trump better than like most foreign leaders and the like. And obviously it's got its moments when you have to sit there and listen to the president. But, I think that's been pretty well handled, the relationship with Europe. Domestically, even the most loyal members of the cabinet would say, well, we haven't got it all right and our message isn't quite clear and people don't really know what the Labour Party stands for domestically. Is that fair? And why is it?
So why is it? Well, I think at least part of it is because you guys left us with...
They weren't my guys by the end.
All right, okay. Well, whoever they were, that lot left us with the highest tax burden since, World War II?
Yeah.
The biggest debt ever, and public services that were on their knees.
And public expenditure right up as well, actually.
But so
but come on, but the country always changes party when there's a mess.
No. But I mean, that's seriously a mess. It's seriously a mess. And so to turn that around was really difficult. And then we had, fought a very nervy election where we had got very pinned in terms of what our range of responses could be. So, we were on a very small.
Could have taken more risks to secure a mandate for change?
Well, I'm talking with hindsight here, but I mean, obviously, I think it would have been much easier for us if we hadn't got ourselves pinned in, but we have. We got ourselves pinned in now in terms of where we can get money from, and what it is. We have a list of things that we want to do, but there's so little money, there's so little room for manoeuvre, so it's much more difficult. I mean, it really is hard. Then I think there is an additional problem, which is we're not terribly good at explaining what the problem is really. But what we need to do is say, look, here is the problem, but there is a solution and we do have a way through this and this is what it is and here's the way we're going to go. So with the courts, right, which is something I know well, you cannot have someone going to trial in 4 years' time because they won't ever plead guilty. Why would you? Even if you were completely banged to rights, you're not going to plead guilty because chances are one of the witnesses will be dead or forgotten or, whatever. And you're 19 years old, 4 years' time is another lifetime. So you'll always plead not guilty, which clogs up the courts even more. Right. And then what happens to witnesses or to the public, you cannot believe in the court system or in the criminal justice system if people aren't actually meeting justice in a justice delayed is justice denied. And so we have inherited a court system that is just, it's so different to my experience 20 years ago. So hang on. So what I'm saying is that's how bad it is. Yeah. So we need to find a solution. So some of the things that are being suggested that we have as a solution are pretty scary. Mm-hmm. So we need to get rid of jury trial on a whole range of offences and have it tried by a judge and a couple of wingers instead, in order to speed up, in order to get through the backlog. We should explain why we're having to do that. But also, if we have confidence that that plan will work, why don't we say, we're going to do it for 3 years. We're going to introduce it for 3 years because we have a plan and it's going to work. And out the other side will be a justice system that you recognise as being good.
That's you think that could get through?
Well, that's what we...
Because people like you with a long record of being concerned about people's human rights, you'd be prepared to say, okay, we'll temporarily get rid of juries.
If it's part of a plan.
To get rid of this
Not
backlog.
get rid of all juries, but get rid of juries in a whole range of different cases, but only if it's for a short-term period. But, if you believe in your plan, why would you worry about there being a sunset clause after 3 years?
But that's something you could have announced. The Labour government could have announced on day one. It's a bit hard, a year in and I'm not saying that, the honeymoon's completely over, but there's still a kind of some space to announce new things. But a whole year has passed where some of these things could have been done.
Well, just on that, I think that what's happened is that there was a review done and the review came back and so now the government is going to spend the summer and will come out with some announcements on what it is that it agrees with. So you need to spend a bit of time kind of in office looking at it and having a proper review done of just how bad things are and how bad they're likely to get. So, but I do think, we should have, and that's what, I got up in the chamber and said, look, why don't you sort out a plan, tell us it's going to work, and then it only needs to be temporary.
But isn't there maybe a problem for centre-left governments, not just in Britain, but around the world of, in these sort of money's tight, the bond market's breathing down the neck of the Chancellor. Taxes, as you say, already at a historic high. So are you really going to look at the reaction when Rachel Reeves puts up employer national insurance and the like? It's not clear that another couple of £1 billion a year is going to make a huge difference to some of these public services. They're all kind of creaking. And then you've got this sort of angry population, angry about immigration, angry about kind of cultural issues. And it's just quite the sort of Clinton Blair era of the confident centre-left progressive world feels, somewhat in the rearview mirror at the moment.
Well, I'm not saying it isn't hard. Of course it's hard. But, we're not giving up. Why should you give up? As I say, I've just given you a suggestion in relation to that. I'm now going to contradict myself because whilst taxation levels are very high, I think actually what we have seen over, the last few years is the rich has got a lot richer. I think that we should be looking, and this is not my field, but, I do think that there may well be things that we could do.
Well, some of them live in Islington South.
Some of them live in Islington South.
Very nice squares.
Absolutely.
And,
Islington
Georgian
South,
terraces.
No. And Islington South's a really good example where the rich in Islington South get richer and the poor in Islington South get poorer. And there's nobody in the middle these days.
Because they can't afford the houses.
Because they can't afford the houses. Because they're not lucky enough to have been there for long enough or whatever it is. There's lots of people who are there just out of sheer luck. But most of people are the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. And so how do we square that? What do we do? So I think that we should be looking at things like capital gains tax. I don't understand why capital gains tax rates are so different than income tax. I mean, if you get things on capital gain tax, you obviously haven't grafted for it. It's just because you've been lucky enough to have money that you make money.
That's actually a Nigel Lawson argument.
Well, there we are. There you go. Me and Nigel Lawson, we're like one.
I guess the argument would be, you're seeing, as a London MP, you might pick up a bit of this of like wealthy people are leaving the capital. And you're like, Tompy, that happens.
No. It's, I don't know, wealthy people leaving the capital, middle-ranking people leaving the capital. People in middle income have been leaving the capital and having to commute in. How many teachers...
leaving for like...
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Going abroad.
Well, yeah. But I'm also more interested in, the teachers who have to live such a long way out and in order to come in to teach in the Islington schools that they don't do after school clubs because they've got to commute home again. Yeah, so there are them too. But there's also, there will be wealthy people who can move around the world and who are constantly moving around the world and who may make a fuss about leaving Britain because there may be an increase in tax. But I suspect they will keep their homes and I suspect they will spend a lot of time here and they probably in a couple of years' time will be spending the majority of their time here again because Britain is Britain. We speak English. It's safe on the streets. We have a fantastic cultural life. We have great schools. It's the best place to be. We have good weather. We have beautiful countryside. Why would you not want to live in Britain? You do really.
I'm not sure about the weather, but apart from
at least it isn't so hot.
Okay. So what about? So you're just sort of saying, there needs to be more self-confidence. it's a centre-left government. It should do what it
should
was elected to do.
It should do its thing.
Yeah. And do you think it will do? Do you think it's after the problems of the first half of this year with these big U-turns on the domestic front, it is beginning to kind of understand that, or you still think there's sort of needs to?
I don't know. I think it needs to work at it, and I know that that's what Keir is supposed to be doing over the summer. And I wish him all the best.
What are you going to be doing over the summer?
I'm going away for most of August. During the time when I was a barrister, I used to always take August off. We have this, me and my husband have a pattern of working really hard and then we take August off. We don't work in August. We're very French in that way.
Yeah.
And so that
I'm
was
all
always,
in favour of that. I think that's...
Yeah. And then we spend time with the kids. And so over the years, we've had all kinds of holidays to all sorts of... I'm wearing a jacket that I bought in Syria immediately before the war, which I went...
It's a lovely jacket, I should say.
But the point is, I went there with the family. I was in Aleppo on Easter Day, and we were listening to the bells ringing across Aleppo. And I said to the kids, "You see, Christianity is an Eastern religion." We had experiences like that because we would take all of August off, and this would be the thing.
You don't sip Chianti in Tuscany or whatever.
I do sometimes, but
you do more exotic.
Every other year we do a really exotic kind of adventure, and we take photographs and we collect things and we stick them all in scrapbooks, and they're the most treasured possessions of the family.
And your children, although they're adults, they come with you.
Yeah. Well, we'll pay for them if they want to come, they come.
That's the key, isn't it?
Yeah.
And do you reflect on politics over the autumn? Well, if you get back to the autumn, you're going to be thrown straight into it as chair of the Foreign Affairs Committee on Gaza recognition and who knows what
and
between
and the UN meetings
and the UN meetings in September. But you can pick that up when you get back. You don't spend a huge amount of time stewing on all that on holiday. You enjoy.
I think it's one of those things where you do think about it. You try not to, but actually, it's a little bit like when you're completely relaxed. If you're in the bath, you can come up with some pretty good ideas. On holiday, you don't mean to think about it, but you do. And sometimes just by having a bit of distance and relaxing a little, there are certain things that become clear.
And what about what's your political ambition? You were disappointed not to be on the front bench. I imagine if you were offered a front bench role, you'd take it. Does that mean, I always think it's one of the kind of challenges of the UK Parliament as opposed to the American Congress. You can be the chair of if you were a senator and you were chair of the Foreign Relations Committee in the Senate, that is an unbelievably powerful position. And you wouldn't necessarily swap that out for a position in the government. Whereas here, maybe I'm not speaking about you personally, but people have always traded in those jobs for jobs in government. What would be how do you think about that? I mean, it's not in your gift.
No, it's not my gift. I'm enjoying being chair of the Foreign Affairs Committee much more than I thought I would. I thought I'd enjoy it, but I really enjoy it. I have a great committee. They're like 8 of them are new, completely new.
Lucky them being on the Foreign Affairs Committee. You used to have to do your time before you.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah. And they've also got a wealth of experience. Really different type of personalities and experience. I've got John Whittingdale on the committee. I mean, how good is that? Yeah. Somebody who's got experience of being chair of a committee himself. So, and he's very good. He doesn't normally tell me off in front of everybody else, but sometimes he does. Yeah. But I'm able to talk to him about what I'm doing wrong, and he gives me advice and so on. And we have disagreements, but it's fine. But I mean, my committee works really hard. There is this classic thing, isn't there, with some committees where you see these MPs just reading out questions that somebody else has written and they don't even necessarily understand them. Whereas my committee, they do their own work, they write their own questions. They're great. They're really great. So it's a joy, and I'm very proud of them, and I think we're very influential because of that, because we're on it, and because we work together. We get on. I would like the experience of being in government, because I had this big row when I first arrived in Parliament, and when we were in government, I was never in government. And I've been an MP for 20 years, and I'm really sad I've never had the experience of being in government. But it really depends, I suppose. It's not in my gift, what I might be offered if I was ever offered anything. because I really like what I'm doing now. I mean, I'm a little bit of one of life's enthusiasts. Whatever I'm doing, I really enjoy.
Sometimes the grass looks greener on the other side.
Well, yeah, but I still, I still would like to have had the experience of being a minister because, if you're a minister, you can get things done. I mean, as chair of a committee, you try to influence those who are able to get things done. So you may be able to get things done, but it's all very indirect. Okay, so to actually be able to make the decisions. Listen, I don't even know because I haven't had the experience. So.
Yes, although I wonder on something like Gaza Palestinian recognition, whether your influence and the influence of certainly the Parliamentary Labour Party is quite a lot bigger than, say, a Minister of State in the Foreign Office.
I don't know.
So anyway, we will see. We will see what happens to your career. I mean, it's certainly been a fantastic career to date. And as I say, I'm gonna end where I started. As I think you've demonstrated in this video, you just enjoy it.
Yeah.
And you take whatever's coming next.
Yeah.
And so I think you're going to have a pretty interesting Parliament ahead of you. That'd be my prediction.
I think so too. Thank you very much for having me.
Thanks for coming to your neighbouring constituency here in Hoxton.
Hopefully I'll be able to find my way out again.